On everything, I gotta live like a king. Hey, catch this rhythm. You feel that? That's called playerism. I'm on the scene, a player clean, poker face, 4 queens. I got 4 of a kind on everything. Dig this, living elite. I don't feel complete without kicking at my feet in a Rolls Royce every week. Baby, this is deep. Listen close when I speak. I need to at least, cause I'm too much. I'd be a fool if I love him. You'll be a fool if you trust him. Here with my niggas, we keeping it gangsta. Yeah, I'm a slayer, I'm just keeping it player. I'm fucking her now, we're man eating it later. That's maybe why he is a hater. I'm wearing all black like I'm being a raider. You talk to police, we call you a traitor. I'm running the city, they call me for favors. I'm running the city, they call me the mayor. It's getting political with me, my street presidential, she dealing the quit banging my line, ho. Quit banging my line, ho. When you see me act like you don't even know me, ho. When you see me act like you don't even know me, ho. Come on, baby, get a clue. How you do what you do? How do you fall in love with me, but I'm not in love with you? Peace to the saints! Peace to the saints! Peace to the saints. Did you notice that I wasn't on screen? You're not on StreamYard?
I was looking to see if there are any cash apps.
Okay, gotcha. Anyways, today we are doing trending news. There's quite a bit of news, in fact, from very diverse areas of human activity. I'm excited to do this because we get to talk a little bit about media, about government, about law, about music, about relationships, about religion, all that good stuff. And if there's any piece of news that you think I might not have on the list, feel free to send it in now via Cash App, PayPal, or otherwise so that we can address it. Says the...
It's lagging.
Oh, that's curious. Give me a moment to address that. And during this time, as we improve the stream, please do send in anything you need us to address.
On Cash App, we have Adam. He sent tuition. And Jabari sent tuition.
Peace to the saints. All right. Seems as though we're back cracking now. First piece of news I'd like to get into is it's an old and a new piece of news. There is a former, I suppose I have to call him a former YouTuber named Alex Jones. He operated a media outlet entitled Infowars. And Infowars was known for ideas that can sometimes be outlandish, ideas that are on the fringe, and some would call them conspiracy theories. Personally, I've never been a listener of Alex Jones, but I do know that it is important to have the Alex Jones of the world to be able to have a platform. So we're going to discuss this in brief because it is indeed in trending news today, but I thought it was important to look a little bit at history, and I always encourage you all to be aware of history, not because of that worn out phrase of, if you don't know your history, you're bound to repeat it. That's super corny. Because certainly people do know their history and they still repeat it.
MCC said he's here from your short where you were roasting the pedophile. He said it was a good video.
Hey, I appreciate it. Indeed, and there's a lot more pedophiles out there that we need to address. And the funny thing is that as the LGBTQ mafia grows, we are going to find that they're going to include MAPS, M-A-P-S, minor attracted persons, as a part of that grouping. I think we've all known that, but we can fight against such things, and we shall.
Austin came in with $50.
Oh, and by the way, welcome to the new folks. Everyone welcome him warmly, the gentleman who came in from the short. And of course, we have a baller alert.
Austin likes supporting the trending news.
Indeed. Shout out to Austin and shout out to the intelligent men and women who support the trending news segment.
And he says supporting the series.
Indeed. This is one of our most important segments for those who would wish to become wealthy, those who would like to be informed, and those who want to be good conversationalists and knowledgeable men and women.
And Wills came in on Cash App. He said, tuition for all the great game you've given us.
I appreciate that, Wills, and it has been a lot of game indeed. Now,
Bisto said, can you give your thoughts on the Safety Act in Chicago when you get a chance, Saint?
the
Thank you.
safety.
Yeah.
Curious. Okay, let me go ahead and just type that into Google real quick. Safe-T Act. That is, I've never heard of that. Safety Act signed into law in 2021, so this is not so fresh, by Governor Pritzker, featuring sweeping criminal justice reform, which proponents of the law say will help end systemic racism. Highly unlikely. I think people forget that systems are comprised of human beings, and it's not the system that's racist in most cases. It's the individual who have biases that are in their mind, sometimes subconscious. So I'd be curious to see how they're going to legislate that away. But let's see. I have a feeling this is going to be funny. So let's see. He signed this into law. This is to end systemic racism. But critics of the law say it puts violent criminals back on the streets. Now, first off, of all the criminals I don't like, the ones I really don't like are the ones who are sex criminals, the ones who are thieves. They just, you take your eyes off of something and it's gone. The ones who do hit and runs, those kind of manslaughter, and fraudsters, credit card fraud, identity theft. Those are the ones I really don't like. Violent criminals are often cool with me, you dig, as long as they're being violent appropriately. Indeed, violence is an actual natural part of human and animal life. It's necessary because every now and then you have wicked people and you got to just cut their head off every now and then. But let's see. So I just see a fake article on this. It just goes to tweets. It doesn't actually say what the Safety Act is. So I'm trying to find a proper article on this, which is, proving not easy. So I'm clicking onto Capital News, Illinois. Let's see what they say. Damn, you think you'd be able to get a quick summary of this damn thing. They are not making it easy. I'm just going to type in Safety Act summary. And just real quick, for those who are wondering, how do you actually deal with systemic racism? How do you actually reform criminal justice systems? Now, before we go into the Safety Act, let me give you the short and sweet summary as a person who has been in public education, as a person who has been in government, and as a person who has been in nonprofit, which are kind of the three institutions that operate in this area of human activity called social justice reform and ending systemic racism. So number one, let me acknowledge that there are some, I believe, innate drivers of racism. That is the idea that we tend to section off with those who appear to be similar to ourselves. So we preference those like us. This could lead to some forms of racism based largely on ignorance. We're not familiar with what the other person is like, the foods they eat, the religion they have, all these things being foreign. And our ignorance might cause us to look down upon something or to be scared of something or to think that our way is superior. This is understandable. This is less common in the modern era where we find ourselves among one another, the different ethnic groups, and we have infinite sources of information. The only challenge is when you have repetitive images being pushed out on media. But here's the thing. Are some of those stereotypes not based on truth? Can we not acknowledge that in the case of the African American male is in great disrepair? About 49% of prison population in the United States is African American male on the men's side. When you see the African American males, half of them don't speak English as though it's not their first language. They have their pants hanging around their mid-thigh, exposing the buttocks in a very disgusting fashion. You look at the African American female and you find that she's unruly, aggressive, and quite masculine, wearing a hair hat, shout out to Tommy Sotomayor, wearing all of the fake things that show us that there's no real base of anything within her, certainly not femininity. So in summary, the African American male and female are in great disrepair. As Marcus Garvey pointed out long ago, the black man and woman in America will not have respect until they are respectable. That's not how he phrased it. That's how I phrased it. And I say this because I remember being in elite universities and I was taking a course in African studies. And I remember getting together with the black students and saying, hey, this first exam is very simple, but I want us to do the best on it because there's only 5 of us in this class and it's a course on Africa. We need to perform because the professor used to post the grades publicly. I didn't want to be embarrassed. They refused to actually show up to the study groups that I organized. A couple white girls showed up. None of the black kids showed up when the grades were posted. You look at the bottom 5 scores. It was all the black kids except me. I was up at the top with 100%. You go to a school like Berkeley, it's basically everyone's getting 100%. And then you got a few idiots at the bottom, which were the black kids. I don't know how they ended up in the institution. So I say that to say, I'm not saying racism is good. I'm not saying I justify racism. I'm saying a lot of the lack of respect is based on something real. And the more important thing than getting white folks not to be racist against black folks or Latinos or Asians not to be racist against black folks, for example, the more important thing is to get black folks to be worthy of claiming to be an equal. Talk to me.
I sent you an article, by the way.
Oh, did you? Good, because I need one.
George sent a cash app. He said, good to see the ism spreading. Peace to the saints, big homie.
Peace to the saints.
We have Adam is back on Cash App. Oh, it just is now available on Cash App.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Okay. On PayPal, we have Musi said, peace to the saints. Congratulations on 90K subscribers, Saint. 100K and beyond is right around the corner.
Indeed. And the funny thing, we've gone viral like 4 times, but there are the forces that be, the forces of evil, shall we say. But we see that we clearly will continue to overcome it. And the strength of what we do is greater than humor. It's greater than charm. It's greater than roasting someone. It is the fact that we actually have real ideas and real organization. And that's what will carry us to the top over time globally around the world. So I appreciate those of you who have stayed loyal and who contribute to this work. To answer the first gentleman who sent in his super chat, this article says there's no purge law debunking right-wing propaganda about the Safety Act. Lord knows they got propaganda on both sides, which is why I do this segment. Over the last couple of weeks, misinformation campaigns have been pivotal against the criminal justice reform law in Illinois. Governor Pritzker signed a law called Equity Today, the Fairness and Equity Today Act. Curious. Okay, so what does it do? All right, here it is. A defendant can only be detained in jail pre-trial if they're charged with specific types of felonies, such as murder and sexual assault. And if what about the thieves? No, well, you know what? Actually, this is reasonable because truth be told, if the system is based on innocent until proven guilty, you shouldn't really be in jail until you're proven guilty. So, okay, so this seems reasonable so far. I wouldn't want to spend any amount of time in jail for some trumped up charges. I'm almost wondering why the sexual assault thing even applies, because Lord knows there have been a lot of women out there making up lies. See Amber Heard as a great example of such. If prosecutors prove to a judge that a defendant is a flight risk or poses a specific real and present threat to any person in the community. Okay, so those are the cases in which they'll be held. Now, this is really weird because this is pretty much how it's always been. Are they just saying without bail? Is that the idea?
Wills sent a super chat. He summarized it for you. He said, the gist of the Safety Act is they allow many criminal offense, no cash bail, including kidnapping and aggravated DUI, armed robbery. Stay out of Illinois Saint. They call it a purge law also.
They allow many criminal offense, no cash bail. So does that mean that you have to just stay in jail?
No, you're just out.
Oh, you just get to go out.
Yeah.
Oh, well, and the state takes no collateral. Oh, hell nah.
So starting January 1st, the Safety Act will abolish cash bail across the state. Once the defendant can only be detained in jail if they're charged with specific felonies.
Oh, hell nah. Now, that's bad business right there. Anytime as a business person, if you have an asset or if you have an interest, you always want some collateral on that, which is to say to ensure your investment. And truth be told, prisoners are an investment for the government. The government makes great deals of money on prisoners. So does private industry. You know, if you're locked up and you make a phone call, they're charging you a significant more than the market rate. If you're locked up and you're working, you're being paid pennies on the dollar for the same work you do outside of the pen. But truth be told, when you have a criminal, and we know criminals are not rule followers, you have a criminal, not saying all of the persons who are accused are criminals, but if you don't get any collateral or bail, we've increased the risk of them not returning, and we've also reduced one of the many penalties that one suffers when they end up doing wrong in the society. So yeah, I agree. This is not something that's good for the state of Illinois, and certainly not the city of Chicago, of which I was a resident. I used to live in Southside Chicago and eventually in Little Italy and finally in River North when I was well off.
Colby TV said, peace to the saints. Hi, I admire the broad range of knowledge you possess across many subjects such as business, relationships, history, and politics. So I wanted to know, how could a young man like myself also obtain such knowledge?
I always advise people to go for what pays. Having knowledge across a broad range of topics doesn't necessarily pay. In this era, you get paid if you're a specialist. If I were a young man taking advice from a wise and wealthy man, I would take the advice that says, hyper focus on a skill set that is rare but valuable, which is to say that, when I recount the history of the Soviet Union or China and the economic reforms under Deng Xiaoping, or, obscure topics like that, average people don't care and they're not really interested. I could probably make more money telling jokes at a stand-up comedy night, doing my best Cat Williams impression than being a scholar. So I say that to recommend to you to go for what pays. In terms of being a knowledgeable man, it comes from experience, travel, the associations you keep, having intelligent people around you, and your general nature. Are you playing video games, or are you reading? Are you watching television for drama and comedy, or are you watching documentaries? It comes from your nature and your daily practices. Things accumulate.
Mel sent a cash app. He says, sending intuition, peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints.
Hassan said, Marquette, why are you no longer practicing Islam?
Because the practitioners of Islam are disgusting on average, and they're generally no better than the practitioners of any other faith, which is a pity, because if you were to read Islam, it's so much more beautiful than all of the faiths. And what I ask myself is, if something is of God, why don't I see the divinity in the followers? And the Quran versus, say, the Bible, the Quran is 109 surahs or chapters. It's very short. Correct me if I'm wrong. I've been out of it for a little while. It's very short, but still most Muslims have not read it, even though it is proper to memorize it. You even have Muslims who grow up speaking Arabic, which is the language that the Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and they've not memorized it, which is fine. But what is worse is this. Most Muslims, rather than living out the most beautiful aspects of the Quran, are not interested in the goodness that is taught or following the Sunnah and all of the kindness, but rather they want to enforce the rules of Islam. They want to point out all the negative things in terms of, hey, you're breaking this rule. That's haram. You can't do that. And they're also focused on like very irrelevant trivialities. For example, when you break your fast, some people say, oh, the Prophet, he would eat dates in even numbers. So he'd either eat 2 dates, or he'd eat 4 dates, or he'd eat 6. You can't just eat 3 dates, my dear brother. And it's so irrelevant. And it shows you the true idiocy of the average person, but also of people who are within this faith, but they practice it as a culture rather than a religion. They rob all of the beauty from it. And I don't want to be associated with people who go under the term Muslim and you find that they're creating terror, or people go under the term Muslim and they're completely unruly and they're degenerates. For example, last time I was around Muslims, I was making salah, which is to say praying. There were people in the background being noisy and loud and allowing their children to behave like animals. I was internally enraged, because prayer is supposed to be in peace. I should only be able to hear the sound of the Quran. I should be in a clean environment, but instead there are animals among me, but they've grown up in this faith their whole life, this beautiful tradition, and they have no respect for it. And so I just follow this ism, you dig? I follow something that is regulated today and something that has laws and standard today, where if someone is not abiding, we can cast them out. There's so many who claim to be Muslim, but they are not Muslim. They're probably closer to being devils.
Okay, Lorenzo said, peace to the sinner. Sir, is it true you are calling out trolls to fight you in Vegas? Keep up the good work. I'm an older man who listens to you.
I'm not calling out trolls, but there are a number of YouTubers who have big mouths. And I did invite them to come to Saint City, and so that they might, display some of these fighting skills they speak of, or we might see if their big mouth has anything behind it. You see, I'm a serious man, and I think that we have a lot of internet nerds and they babble back and forth for clout. But if someone disrespects me, I always take it seriously, and I always put them on my hit list, and I'm going to get everything crossed off my hit list. And so, yes, I have invited them, and you've noticed it's been quiet as a church mouse. No one is coming to Vegas. No one ever will come to Vegas. And if any of them were ever to see me in person, we'll see what's what and who's who.
Heels in, send a cash app.
Shout out to Hills In. He's very consistent. Shout out to the loyal Saints.
Jetstone Jeremy said, peace to the Saints. What is the most effective way to clean the white MDB label hat? Amazing hat, by the way. I think he's referring to what you have on.
Yeah, shout out. This hat is linked in the description. Dang, that's a good question. Are you talking about cleaning the outside or the inside? I mean,
you've had that for a while.
Yeah, I've had this one for a long time. As you can see on camera, it's still white as hell and super clean and crispy. So damn, I've actually never had to clean mine, bro. I couldn't even call it. Damn, what are you doing in your hat? you running a marathon in it? I couldn't even call it, bro. But I would think that you'd probably use a similar product that you would use on something else that would be dry clean only, non-machine washable. So that's what I would look into. But I will say that generally they stay pretty clean. Like this one I've had before anyone else has had theirs, because I always buy the products before I sell them. And this one's pretty fresh and crispy. The hoodie's also linked in the description for those who want to really get your drip up.
Edwin said, have you done an ancestry test?
I have not, because I think they're largely irrelevant, to be honest with you. We had one politician in America who phenotypically appears to be a white woman, dirty blonde hair, blue eyes. She claimed to be Native American so that she could get an advantage in getting into university. It's quite comical. I forget her name. Do you know who I'm talking about? Yeah, Trump had pointed that out. It was pretty funny. But I say that to say this. For example, if you took an ancestry test and you're African American, say, and they tell you, your people are from this tribe or this region of Africa or anywhere else, we find that borders, whether they're political, tribal, or otherwise, have been redrawn many times. And so it doesn't really teach me anything that I can utilize. Anytime I come across a piece of knowledge, if I'm watching a movie, if I'm watching a talk show, if I'm having a conversation with someone, if whatever it is, I always ask myself, what can I do with this? In terms of an ancestry test, I don't think there's much I could do with it. That is the results. I don't think if it told me, hey, you're a part of the Fulani tribe, which is today in modern Nigeria, and I went back there and showed up to the Fulani tribe like, hey, guys, I'm home. I don't think they'd be like, oh, my brother, and like welcome me. So I wouldn't really utilize my time for such a thing. I think it is kind of an exercise in idleness.
Dallas in a cash app, he said, thank you for all the knowledge you share. Peace to the Saints.
Peace to the Saints.
Joseph also came in on cash app and said, peace to the Saints.
Peace to the Saints.
On Super Chat, we have NBA Mastermind said, peace to the Saints. Could you talk about a recent challenge you encountered and how you overcame it?
Oh, man, I'm encountering challenges all the time, but I really don't think of them as challenges. I think of them as life. Life promises, happiness and success mixed with challenge. And your mindset is really a big part of that. So honestly, if I were to try to think right now and focus on a challenge, there's some that I could probably identify, but none that jump out because I never hyper focus on challenge. I always hyper focus on solution. I am never bothered by challenge because I expect challenge. And I always remind you all that you will experience lack of health. You will experience death of your loved ones. You will experience loss of wealth. These are the things that generally ail us as human beings, and they will be coming for you and they will go away and reoccur. And you should be able to take them happily. It is the nature of life. But if you can focus on the happy moments in life and bask in them, and the challenging parts you hurry through and you work on solution, then you'll be in a good mindset. Even recently, there was a little devil that was trying to nibble at my peace. It doesn't work because I've been through a lot of experiences in life, and having had a rough start to life due to circumstances of poverty and parentage, etc., I try to enjoy this stage of life. And someone around me was getting drugged down by a hater, and I say, "Oh, whoa!" Don't let that affect you. No, don't go weak on me. And I was just resetting their mindset to say, this is a small thing. You got to treat the small things like small things, but in the grand scheme, they're all small things. So I'll give you a short piece on challenge. Number one, when you experience a challenge, write it down, break it down into its component parts, and then ask yourself the most challenging part of this, what will I do now in this moment to get started on addressing it? And some things are not worth addressing. Some problems you can just avoid, others you have to address head on. For example, there's one small problem that we'll be addressing organizationally at 8 o'clock today. So we invite you all to join. We're going to teach you about law and how you can use the law to your advantage. So I invite all of the members to join. If you're not a member, these are going to be skills you can use your whole life. So I highly recommend you join. It'll be at 8 p.m. for the members. It's posted on the member website. The link for membership is in the description, patreon.com/thesaintinthe center.
Hey, Jetstone that asked about cleaning the hat said, yeah, mostly for cleaning the inside. I'm a golden brown skin tone individual, and the inside gets dirty usually after a while. Thanks for the suggestion. I don't think yours is dirty inside.
No, but I understand what he's saying. I get that. Yeah, I'd probably just Google something like that. But we do actually have Dorian making the next version. Mm-hmm. We're always thinking about things like this. And Dorian is making another version of this hat. And what he's doing on the inside is he's making it a dark color, like a red or a dark blue or something like that. So keep an eye out. We'll release that. And that'll be one that cosmetically, you won't feel the need to have to clean that inside as much. So I understand what you're saying.
Trevor said, peace to the warrior king, the king of this YouTube thing, the saint in the center.
In a real way. Appreciate it.
Hassan is back and said, is it possible to organize more political debates against feminists, LGBTQ, etc.? You come from a rare place of complete security. There is no one on YouTube that can debate like you. I
appreciate that. This is actually quite difficult, I think, for two reasons. Number one, being that we're at odds. I don't have them in my network. I don't have these feminists and LGBTQ advocates in my network. That's number one. Then number two, we ask all the time because that's some of the best content and they regularly decline. We've actually been trying to find a MAP, minor attracted person, as well as one of these therapists who claim that, it's okay. We just have to give them therapy. We're trying to find one of these nuts to bring them on, but they often decline. And also I would like to add one more side note for folks who are often, wondering about bring more women on the channel. The kind of woman you want to marry generally is not going to want to come on a YouTube channel for any purpose. They're squares. They have legitimate 9-to-5 jobs. They don't want their face on an entertainment program, especially a reality-based entertainment program. So generally when you're seeing a chick who's on an entertainment program, it's a stripper, it's an OnlyFans girl, it's a girl who's a clout chaser, it's a girl who thinks she's an Instagram model, it's a sugar baby, it's one of these personalities. But I appreciate that, and we are working on it, regardless of the difficulty.
Carry on.
The first piece, as I said, Alex Jones runs an outlet called Infowars, which is a very clever name because we are definitely in a propaganda war. We're in a cultural war. We're in a spiritual war. And YouTube, Apple, and Facebook have basically shut him down. And you might think that's a recent thing, but that actually happened in 2018. And he pretty much disappeared from the internet without me noticing, as I wasn't a fan, but I trust his real fans did notice. And that's a dangerous thing because when you remove someone for lying or creating conspiracy theories, a lot of things are conspiracy theories until we find out that it's true. You see, some things are hard to believe, but they turn out to be true. For example, I find it strange that we still don't know who assassinated John F. Kennedy. If someone were to speculate on that, would they be a conspiracy theorist or would they just be a theorist? What makes them a conspiracy theorist? Oh, I'm so sorry, but forgive me. This person's calling from France. I have to take this call real quick. They're calling a bit earlier than expected.
Yeah.
Hey there. Yes. Please forgive me. I wouldn't take that call except someone was calling from France, and the time zone is quite difficult. Anyways, as I was saying, the term conspiracy theorist can be assigned to someone. When you call someone a conspiracy theorist, you're one, calling into question whether they're making factual claims. Also, in some cases, they're questioning things that we cannot establish a truth on. And so the moment you call them a conspiracy theorist, they can't prove that they are or aren't. But the sad thing is that when you remove them from having a platform, then you do two things. If they're actually a conspiracy theorist and they're saying crazy things, now they're saying crazy things in private, and all their little cultish following is now in private. So you can't even monitor them. They're harder to monitor by big tech. They're harder to monitor by government. So it's actually more dangerous because when you marginalize them, you draw them in closer together and you don't have an eye into what they're thinking and doing.
NBA Mastermind is back and said, I appreciate your wisdom.
You're very welcome. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much. And he's been very consistent over time.
Taylor said, peace to the saints. I've been questioning whether my parents are good people or maybe I'm just different. I feel bad energy and low self-esteem around them. Thoughts?
I remember when I was a child and I would constantly hear this respect your elders concept, and it troubled me because I had a grandmother who had birthed 9 children, and I'll give you a little taste of why it was troubling, because she was a Christian woman in her old age, yet my mother's name is Burton, Kimra Burton. I have an uncle named Jimmy Finkley. I have another uncle named Marlon Johnson, and I have another aunt named Betty Gibson. That's 4 different last names. 4 different last names in one family, which no one wants to say such a thing about their kin or about their elder, but certainly by my standards today, I'd say my grandmother was a fucking whore, because it's quite disgusting to have 4. I'm sorry, was that out of control? It's disgusting. It's disgusting to have 4 last names in one family, 4 last names. And it bothers me today because that kind of conduct ruins families. And I'm not saying she's the only culprit. Clearly, the men are culpable as well. But she obviously had an issue keeping her goddamn legs closed. And that created a great deal of disrepair in the family. And that bled into their children and the children of their children, etc. So her bad, immoral behavior created much damage. Now, could I rightly say that she was a moral woman for much of her life? No. In her old age, sure. But isn't it easier to be moral when you're old and your passions have subsided and your body won't even allow you to run the streets in the same way? Even you got guys like Gandhi, who is misrepresented in the media. Number 1, he used to beat his wife, which we never speak of. Number 2, he was also a racist against the African, which we never speak of. Number 3, he became celibate after he experienced a trauma, not because of spiritual reasons. And also, he was old when he became celibate. So how hard is that to do anyways? But I say all of that to say, yes, your parents might not be good people, because let us remember, all of the wicked folks we observe in the society are related to somebody. And just because your parents are wicked doesn't mean you're wicked. If you can see the difference, and that would probably indicate to you that you are not of the like. So I respect you for being honest. And there are some things you can't tell certain people because they can't handle the truth. And I wouldn't see my grandmother at Thanksgiving like, you's a hoe, shut up. I wouldn't do that, but I would damn sure not follow her morality. And when she starts thumping that goddamn Bible, I would think about, why did the Lord not see fit to bring your ass to the light 20, 30, 40 years earlier before you started creating all these goddamn broken families and this bad example? But, there are very few people who will say the truth as I say it, which is plainly. There are very few people who are objective enough to say what is real, even if that person who is guilty is close to them. I'll even say what's real when it has to do with me. That's the key, is when we're nourished by the truth, we will find that the world is much easier to navigate.
Okay, Kevin came on a Cash App with tuition.
Shout out to Kevin. In summary, Alex Jones got kicked off of the major platforms. You see that this is a trend, and if we don't start fighting this, then we're all going to be gone. You know, they took off Alex Jones, and granted, he says some wild stuff. That's why I was never a fan of his. He says some things that are pretty off color. But then you have an Andrew Tate, who I also was not a fan of his, because he would also say some things that are like not founded in facts and science and research. He would just say things that are a bit, controversial, but not always quite right. But he also said a lot of things that are completely reasonable, very entertaining, and he was worth hearing. And he was banned for doing much less than in Alex Jones. In fact, he was banned because he was far more reasonable than Alex Jones. And for that very reason, he would be able to spread and influence greater swaths of the population. And for that reason, he was marginalized so that the current controllers of culture, big tech and the leftists, could put him aside. And what you do is you allow it to happen, because when Andrew goes onto an inferior platform like Rumble, and Rumble's a piece of shit, and I say that as a technologist, when you have him on a Rumble, now you're not going to go from YouTube to Rumble, because even I tried to start posting on Rumble. I don't even know how it works. The user interface is ugly. There's not as much content. It's just not very quality. And that's generally how technology start. It takes time for them to get good, shall we say. But we're not going to follow him onto Rumble. We're not going to keep touch with him. And over time, Andrew Tate will disappear, and there'll be some other guy, and they'll knock him down too. But there may be one of us who is very clever and who has created superior organization, and also may infiltrate some of the, the big tech and government that does the canceling. We're in a unique era wherein, you can't only fight the government, you also have to become the government. You can't only fight big tech, you must also become big tech. And that is a greater strategy. Anyways, Alex Jones, last piece on him. Basically, he is currently testifying the Sandyhook families that were victim of, was that a hurricane or a school shooting? School shooting, right. So they were victim of a school shooting. Apparently, we had some dead children, right? Yeah. Okay. And he was claiming that it was a hoax and didn't really happen, is my understanding. And they got angry and they were trying to get some money out of him. Were they trying to get the money out of him because it's going to heal their feelings or bring their kids back to life? Or were they trying to get money out of him because they want to get money out of him and that's an excuse? I'm probably going with the latter. If I had a kid who was gunned down in a Sandy Hook, would I be disappointed and displeased? Absolutely. Would taking someone else's money heal me or undo the history? Absolutely not. It's a very thinly veiled attempt for those families to make a buck off of him. And then secondly, you have the leftists and the establishment and the government utilizing this to further marginalize him, his platform, and also push him into poverty so that he sinks into the dustbins of history. It is very strategic, which is to say, when your enemy has tripped, go ahead and push him over so he falls. And that's what's happening right now.
Said, peace to the saints. I would love to hear your thoughts on Iran. Also, thanks for your advice on Muslim marriage on your previous stream, and would love to hear more advice on a 24-year-old man. Sorry for being off topic.
No, you set the topic. That's why we allow you all to call in and set the topic. Leave that one up on screen. I'm going to get to that one. Okay. And the last piece about Alex Jones that I really want you guys to know, because Alex Jones is truly irrelevant. And again, he'll disappear, but we have to understand the precedence that's being established. When you allow people to sue someone because they have an alternative opinion or a different perspective, or they've said something that's untrue, but not directly malicious to an individual, this is actually creating a precedence in law. This is kind of strange. What I mean is that generally you could sue someone under tort for slander or libel or defamation, which is to say you're trying to destroy the individual. You can also sue people for pain and suffering, but it's usually when they direct it at you as an individual, or maybe even at a demographic of people, but this scarcely constitutes as such, and it's now empowering the left to utilize law in novel ways to punish people whom they disagree with. If he's a weirdo who thinks that this didn't happen, so what? Let them say crazy things. I walk down the street and see homeless people saying all kinds of things all the time that don't make any sense. I'm not going to take them to court. I see homeless people talking to themselves all the time. I'm not going to take them to court. I see Joe Biden talking to himself all the time. I'm not going to take him to court. It just is what it is. But this is a strange precedence. Anyway, so you have it on the Alex Jones. Now, the gentleman says, I would like to hear your thoughts on Iran. Iran is a fascinating thing. And by the way, if you ever been to Iran or lived in Southern California around them Persian girls, they fine as hell, that long black hair, you dig? But not one of them has any goddamn morals. It is a terrible thing. You see, it's like keeping up with the Kardashians. That's pretty much how those Persian girls are. I'm just keeping it real with you. It's all love, though. Let's get into this. And this is fascinating because the Persian Americans, generally, they do fairly well for themselves economically. I have not met any of them that are actually religious. Maybe some of their great grandparents are, but never met any in the States that are actually religious. A little bit of background for you. Iran, if you come from there, you'd be called Iranian, but a lot of folks in America like to call themselves Persian, associating themselves with the Persian Empire and that heritage, but mostly trying to distance themselves from Iran, which has been at odds with the American government for a long time. So just a little bit of background on that. And they are Shia Muslim majority. And someone feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. If you're, Persian, you're like, that's incorrect. Feel free to make it correct. But they are Shia majority, which is in contrast to the Muslim majority in the planet Earth, which is Sunni Islam. I'm not going to go into the fine differences between those two different sects of Islam, but essentially they both think the other one is wrong. And you can find various places in the world where they're actually at war with one another. That being said, Iran is a fascinating country because, one, they do have religious police, and two, their history is just utterly remarkable, and it gives a great note to all of you in as much as you never need a foreign government to come in and help a population. If a population does not like their ruler, they will overthrow that ruler organically. And let me explain why, and I'll give the historical example from Iran, and we'll get to the gentleman's question. Number one, any ruler who rules is permitted to rule, whether we're talking about an Adolf Hitler, a Vladimir Putin, or a Joe Biden. You see, because for a ruler to rule, they must have a lot of agents under them, bureaucrats as well, police, military, all of these soldiers who choose not to rebel and create a coup. They choose to cooperate within that government structure. And who are the police, the soldiers, etc.? Those are everyday people. Those are called citizens. Those are the population. So if a population is significantly against the president, then they will rebel. So it's always a lie when America goes into another country to help them for humanitarian reasons. And we've seen this occur in Iraq. They said Saddam was killing his own people. Well, why didn't his own people rebel? Sometimes they'll claim that it's a minority, and that makes a little bit more sense why they would go in. But we know America has a lot of issues with their minorities. Let's see the African American historically, or even recently with regards to the police. So that's just something to note. Now, what is the Iran example? America has always promoted democracy, but it's often been a lie. We backed someone called the Shah of Iran, which was basically like the king of Iran. He came from like an aristocratic family. So he was a monarch or autocrat in Iran some time ago, and he was backed by America. And at that time, I believe they had the 5th largest army in the world, which is quite remarkable given the land space of Iran and given the realities in that region. It was just quite unnecessary, but he had a large standing army because he was a monarch and because, he had to maintain control domestically. He was very westernized in his dress and not very religious, but he was overthrown because he was out of touch with Iranian culture, which at the time was apparently quite religious. And the Shah of Iran was overthrown by his own people, the Iranian people, the Persians, which lets you know you don't need foreign intervention. He also was a puppet controlled by who? The United States. And it's ironic because he was not democratic. He was the opposite. He was autocratic. He was not of the people, even though America promotes democracy. And what is democracy? Government of the people. So you can't believe the American government. They're dirtbags. Now, when he was overthrown, this is really what created the bad relations that we've seen historically between Iran and America, because he was overthrown, correct me if I'm wrong, by the Shah of Iran. And this fellow was an old religious cleric who at the time, I think he was like surviving on like onions and sour cream or something. He was like skinny old dude, wearing a head wrap, and he overthrew this young, vigorous monarch. Which was quite impressive. And he did it and basically created the modern religious state of Iran. Since then, Iran has pretty much been ruled by clerics, Shia clerics. So that's the background on Iran. And they've not been friendly with America. There was a time that they had kind of kidnapped some Americans. And here's a funny little note, just in case you like humor. They had kidnapped some Americans. I think this was under Jimmy Carter's presidency. You have to forgive me on details. I wasn't alive during this. This was under Jimmy Carter's presidency. They kidnapped some Americans. And Jimmy Carter, this is one of the reasons they say he's a weak president. you had the Iran hostage situation, and they told the African Americans that they had kidnapped that, hey, you guys can go. America has oppressed you enough. We're not going to oppress you. So they kept the whites and they kept the others and they let the blacks go. It was hilarious. I just, I find these things to be comical. And it was also strategic. Do you think that the Iranians care about African Americans? Probably not. But it was a way for them to point out that America's domestic racial politics were no better than any other country's domestic politics. So it was very strategic, which is to say they don't give a crap about black people, but they'll utilize black people for their political ends. Just like I'm saying to you that, truthfully, big tech and government probably is not like so scared or so worried about the Sandyhook hoax propaganda coming out of Alex Jones, but they don't like Alex Jones and people who are anti-establishment. So they'll utilize these families who are trying to make a buck so that they can destroy Alex Jones with these families as their instrument. Now that we've gotten a little bit of background on Iran, he writes, thank you for your advice on Muslim marriage on your previous stream and would love to hear more advice on a 24-year-old man. I don't know exactly what that means. But my thoughts on the Iran situation. So let me familiarize myself with today's news on Iran. And we have two articles to review quickly. Our AC is not kicking like it needs to be because I'm toasty as hell. By the way, if you want a warm hoodie, get this one. It's warm as hell. All right. So Iran. First article I want to look at. This one, as I said, Iran is run essentially by religious leaders. So this one, and the Westerners are so arrogant and disrespectful. They don't respect any culture except their own. I just want you guys to know that. Imperialism is alive and well. The West still practices cultural imperialism. They're just not good at it anymore. They're not good at it, but they still damn sure do it. This article is from Al Jazeera. And it is entitled, Iran Leader Cancels Interview with CNN's Amanpour Over Headscarf. And I think this headline to the liberals, they're like, yeah, power to her for not wearing the headscarf. Yeah, her rights as a woman. But it's like, first off, between you, the reporter, your only job is to report, and then the leader of a country, a statesman, who's more important? The statesman. You're just there to report. No one cares about you. No one needs to hear what you have to say. You're very arrogant to say, I will not wear a simple cloth over my head so that I can get this information from this great man, whether I agree with him or not, because the world needs this information. Extremely arrogant, this individual. And also, I think it's trashy that CNN even sent a woman to interview him, showing no respect for the culture. Yes, you might have your culture in which women wear pants and run your society, but that is not their society. Have some respect. As they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. You don't show up to Rome just being disrespectful. Hey, where Julius Caesar at? You don't do that. So anyways, the leader of Iran, shout out to him. He said, you don't want to wear a headscarf? I ain't doing it. I don't need you. And he doesn't. CNN presenter Christiane, who's obviously trying to gain some fame for herself, Amanpour, said she was ready for the interview when an aide insisted she cover her hair because of the situation in Iran, which is fair. I can assure you, if I show up to Saudi or an Islamic state that is very religious and I have any number of my women with me, whether it's a woman I'm involved with or a woman who's working for me, you're going to need to cover up. And I'm going to wear something that is appropriate for this culture as well. And there have been times that I failed to do that and I was very embarrassed. There's one time you might see me, I was in Kenya wearing a shirt that said, I'm too sexy for my shirt. It was embarrassing when I looked at the photographs, but I didn't pack very well. But I would never do this intentionally. Anyways, carrying on. Veteran journalist Christiane, a veteran by time, not by wisdom, was going to interview the Iranian president, Ibrahim Raisi. The interview was scrapped because she wouldn't wear the headscarf, which is currently a major protest in the country. Now, we always have to wonder how major. You see, when America covers these kinds of things, they tend to try to exaggerate it so that they can support their view that they're trying to propagate. When we were having the situations in Ferguson in America with the murder of black males without trial, summary execution by the police, there were protests throughout America. I bet we weren't telling other countries about that or trying to get good coverage of it. When these things occur in other nations, we try to exaggerate. Like, for example, in Russia, they're saying that there's protests throughout Russia. They said hundreds of Russians are protesting. I'm like, okay, this is a country of millions and there's hundreds protesting. This is numerically irrelevant. There are always individuals on the margins or individuals with radical ideas who can collect together in a country of hundreds of millions. Yes, you can always find a couple hundred people who are dissatisfied. Matter of fact, there's a couple hundred people who would protest Marquette Devon Burton, and I'm just an individual. So, of course, a country, a culture, a way of life would have hundreds that would protest it, surely. But anyways, that's the propaganda you're seeing right now against Iran and Russia. And I'm not saying I know what's going on. I'm saying I don't trust the media coverage of what's going on. Anyways, this anchor, they call her the chief international anchor of CNN, who's also has a show on the United Nations public broadcast, PBS, said she was ready for the interview. This is a very repetitive article. Let's see. She was asked to cover her hair and, quote, "I politely declined. We are in New York where there is no law or tradition regarding headscarves." Yes, that's true. You are in New York, but you're interviewing a very religious leader of a nation. Why be so arrogant? This is a great example of the nature of the Western female, which is in disrepair with tremendous arrogance. And she's so arrogant because myself as a male, I am not a Muslim, but if he said, "Hey, brother, if you're going to interview me, I would appreciate if you would wear jalaba or you would wear, fill in the blank." I'm like, "Bro, give me that goddamn thing and let's get this interview cracking." Because my job is to interview. My job is not to express myself through fashion. My job is to interview an important man and to bring meaningful information to the world. It's disgusting what she did. I might even have to tweet at her, and I don't even use Twitter like that. Anyways, this article is not very interesting, so I'm going to close this one and go on to the next one about Iran. That was just a puff piece meaning there's no real goddamn relevance. They're just basically trying to make her seem like she took a stand for all of womankind. She took a stand for the West. No, she embarrassed herself and showed that she has no respect for others and their culture. She's hyper focused on her culture. She's a me monster. She's a narcissist. They asked the woman to put a cotton cloth over her head. She acted like they asked her to have like a transition surgery. Oh, no, that would be okay. That would be all right. Second article, this one comes from the liberal outlet called NPR. It is entitled, "Why Iranian Women Are Burning Their Hijabs After the Death of Mahsa Amini." Iranian women, okay. Well, how many of them? All of them? One thing I do want to point out to you is that if you are a religious woman, because one woman met her demise under circumstances that I surmise are probably not entirely clear to anyone except the people who were physically there. If it had anything to do with hijab and you are a hijabi and you believe in the purpose for which you wear hijab, you're not going to stop wearing it because this happened. Just like me, if I find out that somebody got beat up in police custody because they were wearing velvet loafers, I'm not going to be like, "No, I'm not wearing velvet loafers." No, I'm going to need to hear some more information because velvet loafers is what I do. I'm the velvet pimpin'. Same thing. If they really were religious girls and they wore these hijabs because they're religious, they're not going to change their mind because one girl had a situation. Even if that situation was wrong, you try to avenge the situation, which is to say, figure out what happened and make sure that the police don't become executioners. Rather, they execute their duties instead of individuals. So this is silly. Now, let's dig into this a little bit. Iranian women are burning their hijabs and cutting their hair short in protest over the death of Mahsa Amini. This is great because, to be honest with you, if I was a Persian guy, I'm walking through Iran, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I know who all the thoughts and harlots are. They look just like Amber Rose now. They didn't cut their hair like Jada Pinkett. All these hoes got alopecia now. Great. Now I know which ones to avoid. None of y'all are marriage material. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I will say that we also know that these girls are probably not real Muslims. They're not really Shia Muslims. Let's be real here. And they're also a disgrace to their family and their culture, but that's okay because there are two verses of the Quran that they're violating. Number one, I believe it reads something like, كل المؤمنين يغضوا من أبصارهم ويحفظوا فروجهم ذلك أزكى لهم إن الله خبير بما يصنعون. They're violating that one, which requires them to cover. And then the second violation, which is occurring by the Iranian state and the clerics and the religious people and the culture there, is one that I referenced recently, which is Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun la a'budu ma ta'budun wala antum abidun ma a'bud. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but in short, it says, for you is your way and for me is my religion. I mustn't follow your way. You mustn't follow my religion. To force religion onto women who are clearly more wicked and atheists in their mindset is a violation of Islam itself. And I don't think this is the right way. However, from a cultural standpoint, if you say, hey, within this nation state, we're all Pashtun or we're all fill in the blank culture, and I require that you guys abide by this, it is what it is. And personally, I respect it. I'd rather you keep these hoes in line. Anyways, let's hear what happened over this. So Iranian women are burning their hijabs. Why burn it? Just throw it in the garbage. Let's stop being theatrical. Over the death of Masa Amini, a young woman who died after being arrested in Tehran by Iran's notorious morality police, who enforce the country's rules on hijab and other conservative Islamic modes of dress and behavior. And I will also note that linguistically, it doesn't make sense to say conservative Islam or even conservative Judaism, or even Orthodox Judaism. Islam is conservative. It doesn't change. It is what it is. There's no way to be liberal while being Muslim, or even Jewish for that point. So I find it curious that they put these modifiers on these religions. If you are religious, you should be radically different than the average person in the society. I should be able to look at you and listen to you and tell that you're different. You should not be worldly, in other words. Amini was arrested for allegedly breaking hijab rules. I totally believe it, because a lot of the Muslims, I find, these women, they'll wear the hijab, but they got the first quarter of their hair exposed, especially the Persian girls. I say this having been around a lot of Persian girls, and they are real beauties. But I totally believe this. I buy this wholly. Amini, 22, died on Friday. That's so cold-blooded. In northern Tehran. She must have been in there talking reckless. They're like, oh yeah, we boy, they done whooped her for everything a 304 did ever did in Iran. Boy, she had been arrested on Tuesday and was reportedly taken to hospital shortly afterward. Good Lord. I'm just wondering, was she talking crazy? Amini suffered multiple blows to the head before she died. Oh, they dirty for that. According to London-based broadcaster. Okay, a London-based broadcaster. You heard me? I'd rather hear the news from the country, where it occurred. But hey, that's just me, though. Amini was arrested in her brother's car during a visit to see family members. Now, you know who else probably should have had their ass kicked? Her brother. Because it actually, as the male leader, the wali or the protector, it's your responsibility to keep her in line. You're the leader. If you're the father or you're her older brother, hey, shorty, pull that hijab down. We don't live like animals out here. But no, he want to let her live that thought life. She living that Megan Thee Stallion life in the wrong place. And we see what happened. They probably should have snatched his bitch ass up out of that Miata and whooped his ass too. Anyways, carrying on. Amini was arrested in her brother's car during a visit to see family members in the capital, the outlet reported. She was originally from Saqqez in Kurdistan province. Her father says she was beaten to death in custody. Well, you know the rules, bro. It's not like you woke up in Iran. You've been living there your whole life, my boy. I'm not saying it's right, but you the one that's still there. Amini's family says officers beat her in the police van after arresting her. This is foul. Citing eyewitnesses who support that claim. They ain't help though. They was watching, but they ain't help. Hey, get this on your cell phone. They ain't help though. World Star. They ain't help though. It's crazy. Police rejected the allegation, saying Amini died after being taken to a hospital because she had a heart attack. I don't know if I believe that one. Iranian police. It's possible. Send forensic files over there to find out. Senior officials are promising a full investigation. Okay, sure, buddy. President Ibrahim Raisi, who called Amini's family on Sunday to assure them her death would be investigated. Quote, your daughter is like my own daughter. Is she though, bro? Really? I don't know. I don't know him personally. Maybe he really feel like that way, but I doubt it. But maybe it's possible. And I feel that this incident happened to one of my loved ones. Oh God, you done went overboard, my boy. Just say we're gonna investigate. Iran's Chief Justice Mohseni Aji has also promised a full investigation. Can we just get it done instead of making the promise? I mean, goddamn. Quote, Masa Amini's tragic death and allegations of torture and ill treatment must be promptly, impartially, and effectively investigated by an independent, competent authority that ensures, in particular, that her family has access to justice and truth. Acting UN High Commissioner of Human Rights, Nada El Nashif, said in a statement. Yeah. It's also funny how these institutions that are pretty much generally run by, certain groups of people always put out like a brown person to like say certain things. It's like every time they do, like, you notice when a black guy dies in police custody, they always send the black reporter out to like, hi, I'm here in Ferguson reporting on the death of Fred Hampton Jr. or whoever got killed. They always send the corny black person out. Or like if like something happened in the Middle East, they send out like some like super liberal brown girl who is not Muslim at all, but her parents are Egyptian or something like that. And her name is Al-Haj Malif Kashash. And they just like let her say it. Oh man, it's crazy out here. So many puppets on the strings. Anyways, protesters and government loyalists cite powerful images of Amini. A photo of Amini lying comatose, oh no, in a hospital is at the heart of the rallying cry for Iranians who want more freedoms and rights for women. I hope it ain't so. The government has pointed to its own images to prove Amini wasn't beaten in custody. Shortly after her death, Iranian police released surveillance camera footage of part of her arrest. Quote, the video shows a woman suddenly collapsing on a chair while she was talking by a female police in the police station. Okay, so apparently the government video shows that she was having a conversation with a female police officer and then she collapsed unexpectedly. So, who knows? Who knows what the truth is? Quote, this is Iran's George Floyd moment, British Iranian actor Omid Djalali said in a video posted online. See, first off, I hate when people try to hijack the experience of the African American and use it. I hope somebody find that boy and slap his dumb ass in his face. Let me tell you why this is not your George Floyd moment, my boy. Number one, was George Floyd the dude that was selling Lucy's? Oh, she's like, I'm white. I don't keep up with this. I'm white. I don't know what the blacks do. But yes, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Okay, anyways. Now, this is not the George Floyd situation, you see, because if you're Iranian and you suffer this in Iran, you're not experiencing this because of something that is circumstantial about you, something that you cannot change, such as your race. So no, you dumb fucking idiot actor. This is not your George Floyd moment, you fucking numb. This is a moment wherein if the girl was persecuted, she was persecuted on the basis of her behavior, not on the basis of her biological reality, you fool. Which is to say, another Iranian woman could have, by behavior, pulled her scarf where they had designated it to be in that culture, and there would have been no situation. Conversely, if George Floyd's situation was racially motivated, which that is the general narrative, I don't know, I wasn't there, and I ain't even researched it because I really don't give a shit. But if it was racially motivated, you can't take your skin off, nor can you adjust your skin to a level to where the American society is going to treat you equitably. So no, that is not their George Floyd moment. Can somebody like remind me to tweet at Omid Djalali, who's probably an irrelevant motherfucker, but since he's, oh, I'm sorry about the cursing. Thank you.
I did see someone asked what your Twitter is. Do you want to share that?
I never use Twitter, to be honest with you. You'd probably be better off hitting me on IG, which is Marquette Devon, but my Twitter is also Marquette Devon, MarquettDavon. But yeah, I should tweet at this guy. And the only reason they're even listening to him is because he's British Iranian, which is to say they put out the brown one. Let the brown one say something against their culture. Like you don't want to be like a white Brit saying something against Iranian culture. You don't want to be a white American saying something against black culture. Send out the brown one. Send out the brown one. It's awesome. You see, if I was a white guy, I'd probably be in jail from the things that I say. I'll probably be in straight jail right now. Did you have something to say?
We have some super chats.
Okay, go ahead.
Anthony said, peace to the saints. Hey, Marquette, I'm 22. I work a full-time job paying $18.54 an hour. I have a 746 credit score. Not really sure what's the best way to utilize it. Any suggestions?
746, that's pretty high, isn't it? Very good. So with regards to your wages, he said he's 18. He's young.
He's young, yeah.
Your wages are irrelevant. What you really have to ask yourself is, what do you want right now out of life, or what do you want materially? Your credit score, you should continue protecting it. And if you were to utilize it, if I were you, I'd probably seek to utilize it first and foremost on a piece of real estate, a low-cost piece of real estate. I'd be saving the wages that you're currently earning. Hopefully you're living with your parents and saving a significant portion of your earnings. And then I would, this real estate market will be bottoming out. It's already cooled out significantly. And hopefully you're in a place where you can buy a row home, which is a very low-cost house, but it's something that would be independent. It would be yours. I would buy one that is not a fixer-upper. It is habitable, and I'd buy it at a good price. And you're a young person. You have no rush to move in. I'd probably try to buy an REO or a bank-owned home, something that is undervalued, essentially. The best house in the worst house in the best zip code, the best habitable house in the worst house that is habitable in the best zip code. I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Stop Playing Trey said, I work for an insurance company in the sales department. I feel I should be doing something greater to earn me a bigger buck. Should I book a consultation to seek some guidance? Peace to the saints.
Depends on you. When you are seeking something greater and you don't do anything, then either A, you're not actually seeking something greater, or B, you're going to have deep regret because you're standing still. Any effort you make in moving forward will make you feel better. It will make you feel happy, even if you get just an inch of progress. But when I've been able to find success in life, I always look back and say, why didn't I move out of that position sooner? Why did I stay there and suffer? I don't think that you would ever regret leaving a job as an insurance salesman. I'm not saying insurance is not a good business. It is a good business, but not if you're the salesman, probably. So yes, if I were you, I would do something. And if booking a consultation to you, you feel like information is something you need, strategy is something you need, or maybe just guidance from an older, more experienced man, then yes, I would advise you to do that. I'll put the link in the description.
Geek Speak said, how long has your secretary been a ride or die, and when did you know she was a ride or die?
I wouldn't say secretary in as much as that's like a very limited role, but I think that's someone's personality. So how long has someone had that personality? I would think for a long time. That comes from culture and upbringing. That's who the person is. And that's why I often remind, especially for businessmen, is that you can hire for values, the values that the person has. Skills you can train. I can train you on how to use Premiere. I can train you on how to use Excel. I cannot train you on the value of being on time, or on the value of being honest, or on the value of being reliable, or on the value of loyalty. That is who someone is.
YKN said, one day I will find a way to return the value I have received from your lessons, tuition. Peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints. I look forward to the day.
Rodrigo says, how to make your intentions clear to a female you're pursuing. Girl I'm talking to seems interested, and I'm ready to find out if she's rocking with me or not. Just don't know how to approach it. Peace to the saints.
I'm glad you asked me this before you made any moves, because number one, you're saying that you'd like to make your intentions clear to her, yet you've not even made your intentions clear to me. Would you agree? Do I know what his intentions are based on that? I don't know what the hell your intentions are. So depending on what your intentions actually are, sometimes it's not good to make your intentions clear. I know that might not sound like quite right, but if you're dealing with someone who speaks German, you don't want to speak Spanish. Women are often creatures of indirection. So if you were to be direct and make your intentions hyper clear, that could actually drive her away in some instances, especially depending on what your intention is. Sometimes it's better to communicate by action rather than by words. So I'll let you take that one to the bank.
Christopher sent a super chat.
Shout out to Christopher. I appreciate you supporting this segment.
Neil also sent tuition.
Neil's very consistent. And I remember Neil got the Handsome Hustler shirt, which is super cold. I got that one as well.
NBA Mastermind is back. He said, a saint cannot believe anything reported by the Western media. It's a complete farce, especially the wording used in these articles.
I hate to admit it, but often we don't find objective journalism. I mean, when you find that a journalist refuses to put a scarf on, I'll put a scarf on my bald head ass if I get to talk to the president of Iran. I don't know who he is. I don't know him. I might not agree with him, but you need to show respect where respect is due. You're a journalist. You ain't shit. He's the president of Iran. Put some respect on his name and put that goddamn scarf on your head. I ain't shit compared to him. He's the president of Iran. I'll put a scarf on my bald head ass if I get to talk to the president of Iran because he's earned that position. And that's why I always tell you guys, respect hierarchy. And that's the age we're in today where people are delusional because they're such narcissists. They think that they're a bigger deal than they are.
Okay, we have Young Demi God said, don't even know why people care for the thoughts of celebrities and actors on these sort of topics.
Right. It's irrelevant. In fact, the thoughts of celebrities in general are irrelevant, and actors are even less relevant because they're paid to pretend to be other people. I find that to be a very low profession. You're a paid pretender. Is lying, is pretending not a form of lying? I don't respect it personally. I think it's strange.
Invest said, peace to the saints, working on a startup in the EV space. Did you give your advisors, if any, equity?
You know what? I didn't. And the reason is because typically when you take on significant investment, your investors will hook you up with mentors or they will be your mentors. In one case, one of my investors in Chicago, a very successful woman, very wealthy woman, and her husband was similar. And he is the founder of one of the largest technology companies in the world. I know almost all of you have used his technology. And so he became my advisor as a result of the introduction from his wife. And more importantly, I think he had made like 30 million when he was 24. So a point or 2 points in my company were irrelevant to him. And I think that if you get a good advisor, mostly they don't really care.
Directed by Jabrizi said, off work, about to eat. My boys in the car are rocking with you.
Hey, I appreciate it in a real way. Peace to the saints. Shout out to everybody sitting in that green thing.
Tyree said, peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints.
Carry on.
Indeed. Oh, so we done finally caught up. Yeah. Cool. I just want to finish this bit up because this is actually news to me about the hijab protests in Iran. And these things mean a lot to me because we've seen culture in America degrade so low that when I see places where there is culture, I hope that they have a chance to hold on to it. I travel a ton, and there's nothing I hate worse than showing up in somebody's country and I'm like, this looks like New York. Like they're like, I'm in Germany. We're the Germans. Or, like, why do the British all dress like Americans? And why is Canada not even Canada? It's little America. Like, I like to show up and be able to tell that I'm in a different place, not just because of the language, but because of the style of dress, because of the way of life, because of how people conduct themselves, how they think. So I like to maintain culture. And so I'm always rooting for states that are trying to keep culture. So this is actually a fascinating thing to me. Social media has been buzzing with unrest. You can never trust that because people and organizations can use bots to push out certain information. On Wednesday morning, top hashtags in Iran included posts about police responses to ongoing protests over Amini's death. And another that essentially states no to the Islamic Republic. Well, that's strange. We know that Iran not being an Islamic Republic is pretty much off the table. That's number one. And then number two, while we have America and the West trying to portray Iran as a repressive state, you actually have China, which is a bedfellow of America, which is truly a repressive state. And I'll give you an example. I've traveled widely in China and even done business with the Chinese government, as I mentioned in previous streams. And when you're in China, can you use Instagram? No. When you're in China, why can't you use Instagram? Because it's blocked. Oh, okay. When you're in South Korea, which is also a major ally of the United States, can you visit certain websites? No. Can you use Facebook or do you have to use Naver? Can you use Google Maps or do you have to use Naver? Your options are limited. There's certain websites you type them in and the Korean government has blocked it. In China, you cannot use Instagram along with a bunch of other social media platforms. Completely don't exist. So the concept of even hashtagging, if you were in China, you couldn't hashtag anything. So just the mere fact that Iran even allows you to hashtag and use Western technologies is quite remarkable. Because according to this article, apparently there were certain trending hashtags in Iran. But backers of the establishment have been blasting out their own hashtag, #MyIran, featuring patriotic images and photos of authority figures, the messages highlighting how much the current dispute is part of a bigger fight over a country's national identity. And indeed it is. Women are burning their hijabs in protest. Well, if Iran was so repressive and Shorty got in trouble for not wearing it correctly, surely burning the hijab would land them in some serious trouble. And apparently that's not the case. Not to say women ain't crazy, we already know. Iranians outraged by Amini's death have been demonstrating for nearly a week. I don't think most of them are demonstrating because of her death. I think they're demonstrating because they're not religious, or their thoughts, or they don't really want to be in a regime as it currently is. They're using her, but they don't really care that she's dead. Let's be real here. With some women setting their headscarves on fire in the streets. Video shared by BBC lead presenter, and here we go, another ethnic name, Rana Rahimpour. Where are all the white BBC employees? BBC stands for British Broadcast Corporation. Do you guys not see how they utilize propaganda on us? Every time they report out anything on this article about Islam or Iran, brown people, none of the names are English names. They're sending forward all the brown people in a corporation that I surmise is majority white. Why can't they just, I think it's something to think about. I think it's something to think about. Video shared by Rana, I can't even pronounce her last name, Rahimpour, shows women standing on top of burning police cars. That doesn't even sound right. If the police car is burning, why the hell are you standing on top of it? I damn sure wouldn't be doing that. But if the police car is burning, then now we have an issue of civil unrest where we could understand if police violence broke out, you're burning police cars. So what's going to happen here is you got the West saying, oh, they're standing on top of burning police cars as though it's okay. They're not condemning that kind of behavior. But if we were standing on burning police cars in America, I promise you'd probably start to see some tanks rolling out, which is what we saw occurring in Baltimore when the Freddie Gray situation happened. I do believe I was in Baltimore for that experience as well. Quote, one question is whether this will stay as a hijab protest, here it is, or mushroom into a larger, quote, anti-government movement, NPR's Peter Kenyon said on Tuesday. There we go. We got one. Now, here's the thing that you need to pay attention to. The West is always trying to use any inkling of civil unrest to mushroom it into an anti-government protest. And it always has to be anti-government because it's against the government that America as a government doesn't get along with. So how we go from hijabs to now we're trying to do regime change? Did that get past you? We're going from hijab to regime change. Did that get past you? Curious. This imperialism is something else. At least 7 people are reported to have been killed since the protests began throughout Iran, the BBC reported. They said 7 people killed. They didn't say if they're police, rebels, fighters, combatants. They didn't say who it was, just 7 people. That's terrible reporting, isn't it? Amini is the latest symbol of the oppression of Iranian women. This is like, you'll see when the West wants to encroach upon the values of other states, they usually use the LGBTQ card or the woman card. Those are their 2 favorite cards. Oh, or the minority card, or the starts with a G, ends with a side card, which is ironic because the only peoples who have ever really committed that atrocity where you eradicate an entire ethnic group, those are the Westerners who have done that. But somehow, ironically, the Westerners are the main people running around the planet Earth trying to prevent that. This stuff is outrageous. And let me tell you one more joke while I'm cracking jokes. Check this out. We're over here saying, why is Putin threatening nuclear war? That's not right. There's only one country that's ever used a nuclear weapon. America. We love comedy. We love comedy. That's a really ironic, powerful, and insidious approach when like you're the bad guy, but you call everyone else the bad guy. It's really clever. Amini is the latest symbol of the oppression of the Iranian woman. In 2019, an Iranian woman named Sahar Khodyari dressed up as a man. I'm done with her. Shoot, whatever they did to her, I'm cool with. She dressed up as a man to sneak into a stadium and watch a men's soccer match. Bit. We supposed to be cool with that. Okay. So that's protest. She done dressed up as a man and went into a place where there are only men allowed. She must really love soccer. Do you think she really loves soccer? No. She's a harlot who thought she was a revolutionary. Turned out she wasn't. Let's see what happened. When the 29-year-old, she's 29, shocker, it's an older single woman. Couldn't even get married. When the 29-year-old was arrested by police and learned she could spend 6 months in jail, she set herself on fire in protest and died. Well, she did the Lord's work. This girl did the Lord's work. And the reason I say that is because clearly she wasn't mentally ill to begin with. So why are we holding up people who are not mentally well? Your protest was going to a soccer match? So you telling me that if I sneak into the next boxing match at MGM Grand and I sneak into the floor seats where I can't afford to sit in like the first 2 rows, because I think I might have been on the second row. But if I get onto the first row, I sneak into the boxing match at MGM Grand, I sneak up to the first row and I sit next to Dave Chappelle, I could call myself a revolutionary. I'm like Martin Luther King now because I done snuck into an athletic event, a sporting event. Come on, man. What are we talking about? The incident sparked outcry in the country and beyond over the strict rules and consequences for breaking the rules. Well, if Shorty set herself on fire, I'm gonna go ahead and say that was that consequence is worse than anything the government did. I mean, what are we angry over? Gender-based violence against women, including so-called honor killings, continues in Iran, and the country's laws do little to protect them, experts say. In a tweet, it's funny how tweets are news now. In response to Amini's death, Robert Malley, the U.S. Special Envoy for Iran, called on the country to increase protections for women. Oh, thanks, buddy. You sent out a tweet. Now we're going to do it. Fucking idiot. Quote, Iran must end its violence against women for exercising their fundamental rights, end quote. Malley, you're an idiot because rights are, as we know them, legal rights are granted by governments. So if the government did not grant them that legal right, then they don't have it. Just like I don't have the legal right to control my own money and capital in America, I don't have that because the American government infringes upon it and has not granted it. Governments grant rights. We're not talking about natural rights. These people are disgusting. Anyways, I'm happy to get past that piece of news. I'm glad you guys were able to make it through with me. It was rough.
Mohammed said you only answered part of his question.
Mr. Huncho?
Yeah.
What was the second part?
I'm not sure. Maybe advice on a 24-year-old man.
I don't understand that. It's not specific enough. I'll reread it real quick, but it reads, his question reads, Peace of the Saints. I understand that part, Peace of the Saints. He writes, I would love to hear your thoughts on Iran. I just gave my thoughts on Iran at length. He writes, thanks for your advice on Muslim marriage. So he's saying thank you. You're welcome. And he writes, I would love to hear more advice on a 24-year-old man. See, I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean advice on what it's like to be 24 and what you should be focused on at 24? I don't understand that in particular.
Okay. We have Invest is back and said, thank you. When raising capital, can you give me one important tip? Stay blessed. Much respect to you. Startup is major work. Wouldn't want it anyway.
I think he meant wouldn't want it any other way, maybe. But the best advice I can give you in terms of raising capital is 2 things. You will get investment based on authenticity. You know, people believe you are who you say you are, who you portray yourself to be. And whoever you portray yourself to be authentically should be at a certain caliber. You know, they have to believe that you have the skills to do what you're claiming you're going to do. Every startup is a promise. You know, the startup is the idea of like, hey, I have this technology. It's supposed to do this. And the target demographic we're supposed to sell to are these people. And we're supposed to eventually make this amount of money. And we're supposed to eventually return you this percentage of our profits or multiply your money by this X. So based on who you authentically portray yourself as, they have to believe that you can do those things. And then the second thing is having a strong team. So no one gets a job done by themselves. So if you're in a tech startup, if you're the business guy, the tech guy should have a very strong background, be able to convey that authentically, and he should have the skills to do the things that you're claiming can be done.
Okay, Carlo sent $50.
Baller alert.
Said, been a minute since I caught these. Appreciate the supreme teachings. Peace to the saints.
Peace to the saints. Is that Carlo from Mexico? Oh, from
This is
Canada.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Shout out.
cat, he said.
Indeed.
And I'm caught up.
Shout out to the ballers. Next piece of news. This one I find sad, actually, because I feel like the world was really rallying around Johnny Depp. They really were. And now I'm like, Johnny. Of all the women on the planet Earth, why do you just go for the convenience of whoever's closest? Let me give you guys some advice. You can always spot a man who's weak and does not feel abundance or have great faith in himself when he just takes what's within arm's reach, which basically means he's taking whatever the world gives him or will allow him to have. He is no longer a hunter. A man should be a hunter. A man should be a warrior. And Johnny just takes what's right there. Sick little disgusting fellow. And the truth is, the things that he suffered with Amber Heard, he brought upon himself. Quote, Johnny Depp is dating one of his defamation trial lawyers. It just looks bad, Johnny. I don't care how thick she is, Johnny. And if she thick, send me a picture. I'll be the judge of this. But 9 out of 9, she ain't thick enough that it's right what you did. She's your lawyer, and the whole world knows that. Let's not mix business and pleasure. And what's worse, if she do you dirty, you know she has the legal skills to fry you. Come on, man. Reports say that Depp is dating an attorney who represented him in the UK trial that he didn't win. Oh, she ain't even a good lawyer. Hello. Her name is Joelle Rich. I like that last name. Rich is currently in the process of getting divorced. Oh, Johnny. She ain't even divorced yet. Come on, man. Have some decency. These cats won't even let them clean their drawers before you know what I'm saying? She can't even clean her drawers. You already trying to get in her drawers. What kind of world are we in? She ain't even divorced yet, and here you are. While she did not represent Depp in the Virginia trial against Amber Heard, she was present in the courtroom. Many people speculated Depp was dating his other attorney, Camille Vasquez. This boy know how to hire a female attorney, don't he? Which was apparently not true. Vasquez also went as far as to call that assumption sexist. Okay, yeah. Okay, people have guessed that you're dating him, and that's sexist. Oh, okay. I don't understand how, but whatever. Joelle Rich, who is a lawyer in the UK, is currently in the process of getting a divorce. She shares 2 kids. Oh, Johnny, let me give you guys some advice that you might not have known. And I'm going to give you a logic, and then I'm going to give you a fact. The logic, when you have someone who's failed at something sacred like marriage or parenting or keeping your family together, now they have experience and practice at doing the wrong thing. Experience and practice makes us good at things. It also removes the fear of certain things. You know, if you've never been to jail, jail's scary. If you've never been divorced, divorce is more scary. If you've done it before, you know the process. I don't want to marry a failure. I don't want to marry a single mom. I wish Johnny didn't, but he's a goofball and he's setting himself up for another round of failure. And this is why you should not look up to celebrities, because they're no more clever than you and I. They might have a specialized skill like pretending to be others, pretending to be clever. But we find that when they're without a script, their life is in shambles and decay. What can you do? Somebody just looked her up. She ugly as hell. Oh, see, there's nothing wrong with her being ugly as hell. That's not relevant. What is relevant is that she's a divorcee with 2 kids. That's not acceptable. I mean, he might think she's the most beautiful woman he's ever encountered. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But what we can all look at factually is that ain't nobody trying to get no single mom. I'm out. Anyways, let's see. She has 2 kids and an estranged husband. According to her bio, she, quote, works to defend reputations against false and defamatory allegations in print, online, and social media. I need to hire this chick. I need to hire her. She also claims to have, quote, particular expertise in protecting individuals' privacy from unwanted intrusions and media attention. I need to hire this woman. Johnny, when you get done with her, send her my way. And let me know if she gives the happy ending. Is that how you end up marrying her? She give the happy ending? This is great. Anyway, so by the way, Johnny Depp is going down as a legend in the book of simps. The book of simpery. He's a legend. You caught up? Yeah. Fantastic. And thank you to those who support the work, whether you click the like button, you sent in tuition, it is appreciated. I have another news clipping for you from Fox News, and this one is quite funny, this headline. Air Force Academy promotes fellowship that bans cisgender men. It reads, quote, "This program isn't for you," end quote. This one is comical on a couple different fronts. It's comical on the first front of number one, cisgender. What the hell is that? It's, again, another created word by the leftists, and they're very intent on creating words, and we have to make sure that we, A, don't adopt their language. It's one of the most dangerous things we can do to ourselves. I recall, and this is one of someone asked me earlier, why am I not a practicing Muslim? I remember talking to Muslim women and them saying things like, yeah, I'm looking for a partner. Full stop. If you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, if you're Christian, if you're Muslim, if you're any of those things, any of the major religions, you are not looking for a partner. You are looking for a wife or a husband. That is what your book dictates. A partner, unless you're talking about a business partner, you're using the language of the LGBTQ mafia. And you're using it unknowingly. And the reason they use the term partner as opposed to boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife is so that they can remove gender from the identity of the spouse, so that their way of life, which is quite backward, is more mainstream. So when heterosexual people start to use terminology like partner, then I'm looking at you, I'm like, is bruh weirdo or is bruh normal? Like, I don't even know. And that's what they want. So no, you're dealing with a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a husband, and wife. So that's number one. And they use terms like cisgender men, which basically means normal men or straight men. So they try to add this word to act like the definition of man does not already exist. So they're adding a modifier, cisgender, which means straight. You don't have to identify with what you are when you're the majority. When you're the normal thing, you don't have to identify that. You only have to identify the aberration. The gay male. You don't have to point out the straight male. We're everywhere. Like if you went to a football stadium and there's 80,000 people, you probably got 79,999 guys who are all heterosexual. We're the majority. Now, if you see somebody that's guzzling Skittles, that you can point out because that's different and unique. Like, for example, if I was born and raised in Germany, I might say that I'm a black German. I say I'm a black German, black, the modifier. Or the adjective. I use that term to point it out because I am abnormal in the context of the majority. But if you were a white German and your history goes back in Deutschland and all of your ancestors are Deutsch or Prussian, you wouldn't say I'm a white German. That would be weird because we assume you're a white German. Just like when we say men, we assume you're heterosexual. But they try to put on that term cis to do us dirty. Don't pick it up. Rejected. And someone says cisgender, say, oh, what does that mean? Say, what does that mean? Say, oh, you mean normal or straight. And then don't let them force their language on you. It says this program isn't for you. And that's ironic because what we have now is a group of people who have claimed to be discriminated against. They are now discriminating against others. Kind of like when you saw the Holocaust occurred, there was a particular group that were being marginalized and discriminated against. The one that was the victim is now turning into the bully. Now they're bullying other people. Pendulum swings too far. We got a group that at some time were probably being bullied. LGBTQ, getting bullied. Now they're turning around bullying us. It's crazy.
Bisto said, "Mint on top of all the baggage, she's not even at least super thick. Will S. and Johnny battling for the title of King Simp."
Indeed, they are, and she ain't even thick. Is she super skinny though? Because if she's thick or skin or super skinny, I could take one or the other. Just don't be in between. Just don't be in between. A little bit on this article. United States Air Force Academy in Colorado is encouraging cadets to apply for a fellowship program for gender minorities. What? I didn't just learn a new term. These liberals are crazy. Gender minorities. How about that? That specifies cisgender men need not apply. Why they didn't say cisgender women need not apply? This is wild. I'd apply for it anyways. If they're giving out free money, I encourage all the cisgender men, don't use the term, all the normal men in the military to apply for this. Get your money. And when they say, hey, you're not straight, be like, hey, how do you know? How do you know? I'm feeling very sweet today. The Academy sent an email September 14th informing cadets that the 2023 application for the Brooke Owens Fellowship for Undergraduate Women and Gender Minor. Oh, wow. So they're doing it for minorities, gender minorities, and for women. That's curious because women are not a minority. In fact, the populations on Earth are usually like 50-50, or it's like more women, because guys tend to do goofy things like fight for your life in war. there's less of us. Oh, okay, that's curious. Wowzer. So, anyways, long story short, this is a discriminatory opportunity to attend a prestigious Air Force Academy, and they're basically banning the most competent person from participating. So basically, this is a military organization saying the people who are best suited for military affairs, which are heterosexual men, one, because we're big and strong, and two, because we're mentally sane. The data actually indicates that people who are LGBTQ, particularly transgenders, have high rates of suicide. Being that they have high rates of suicide, they're not good people to put under pressure. They're already under pressure, and they're cracking. And then females as well don't operate as well under pressure. So they're saying the most qualified person, we don't want you to apply. Oh, that's curious.
Anthony sent tuition on Cash App.
Shout out to Anthony. Appreciate the support, Saint. Wowzer. So we are actually under attack. That's sad. Heterosexual men are under attack. Normal men are under attack. Yikes. Now this last piece of news is apparently the baby just put out a new track. And in this track, he says that he smashed Meg the Stallion, which, truth be told, is no major accomplishment. I probably would keep that on the low because generally you shouldn't kiss and tell. That's not very player at all, number one. And then number two, she not even fire. Like, she not even bad like that. In my personal opinion, she like, aight. And if you mess around and take away them surgeries, she's even less than aight. And then if you actually look at who she really is, without the fake makeup, the eyelashes, the long nails, the fake hair, she's like, really? Nah, I'm like super not impressed with her. Yeah, so I don't know why he would put that out. And I surely don't know why he'd put that out on a song, but it made trending news. So maybe he was just trying to promote his song. And if that's the case, he won that one. Shout out to him. Indeed, he was successful. And as I will remind you again, the African-American female is very lost. And if any of them want to be healed, my IG is Instagram.com/Marquette Devon, MarquettDavon. I am giving therapy out here because check this out. When you have a female who's so lost and apparently illiterate that she doesn't realize that a stallion is a male horse. Why would you call yourself Meg the male horse? If you want to be a thoroughbred, baby, that's a beautiful thing. But I'm pretty sure that the female horse is called a mare. And I didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in Los Angeles, and even I know that. So I would hope that you would, in the future, choose your rap names a little bit better. But I think it was a subconscious thing that a lot of these women in today's society would like to be men and compete with men and portray themselves as men.
Tyree is back. He said, the more I hear news like this, I realize how stupid and crazy the world is.
It's a wild world, but it's also a beautiful world. And the truth is, generally, a lot of this stuff doesn't impact us. Like, the baby hopping into Meg the Stallion's draws doesn't impact any of us, which is good. And, Alex Jones going down, I don't think that'll really change the world. So a lot of these things are not like too serious, but it is, I hope, alerting you all that we are at war and that you need to do something, because sitting back is not going to get the job done. That's what our forefathers did. They sat back, and that's why we're in the situation we are in today, wherein our children are growing up being told that, hey, maybe you're not really a boy. You can be anything you want. You can be a girl. You can be a fish. You can be a frog. You can be a boy and a girl at the same time. That's because people were not standing up and speaking truth and combating evil. So we must do something. And that's why I am constantly emphasizing that you must have fighting spirit as a human being, male and female. But you also must be a part of organization, and you must fight against these policies and these persons who would change the world in a way that is ugly. So the world is not too bad off. The world is not beyond repair. And we must also remember that these news clippings are of things that have been blown up and magnified. The protests in Iran probably isn't that big. The anti-government protests in Russia are hundreds of people in a nation of millions. So a lot of these things are trumped up because journalists have to have things to write about. But what we really should be asking ourselves is, like, where's the news on what we're doing? We need to be making the news. We need to be, setting the agenda. Caught up? Fantastic. Just make sure I hit all of my points. Yes, indeed, I did. I'll give you all a little bit of time to send in your thoughts, questions, comments. If you have anything that you wanted me to speak on before we wrap. I would also like to thank everyone who's been with me for a long time and those who are loyal and will be with me for a long time into the future. And, today we reached 90,000 subscribers. That's a good thing. And hopefully our real message is being spread. And I know it comes from those of you who always make a comment no matter what. You make a comment in the affirmative, positive comments. You click the like button. You share the content. So I thank you for that. And let's carry on.
Harry said, the ism is changing my life. He sent super chat. He said, I'm giving what I can.
I appreciate that, Perry. Thank you very much for that. It speaks well of you. And I'm happy that you're seeing positive outcomes. Let us all end.
Jose sent a cash app. He said, peace to the Saints. NBA Lamar Odom dating TS. Thoughts?
Oh, trans.
I don't know what TS means.
Oh, I don't know. It could be someone's initials or it could be a trans. I actually saw Lamar Odom recently with a female who had a lot of work, or I don't want to say a female, but an individual who had a lot of work. She looked like a Latina.
It says it is a trans, but he's just friends with the trans.
Oh, he's friends with a trans.
I guess there's rumors they're dating, but there's other articles saying just friends.
I tell you what, if it is indeed an actual trans, that's strange. Normal guys don't hang out with trans. It's just not the case. And if he's claiming that the individual is just a friend, that's not the case either. That means he's just too embarrassed presently to admit what it really is. And lastly, we do know that Lamar Odom damn near killed himself overdosing. He has a major drug issue. And again, we're talking about athletes here. They have had success for the talents of the body, not of the mind. It's a sad thing to see our brother falling down, but we know that some people, they fall so low, it's like you can't even get them up.
Darren just got the bomber.
Oh, he got the bomber? Did you get the red one or the black one?
The black one.
Very gangster. I like that. Shout out to Darren. He clean. If you want to get your bomber, sasmbrand.com. This is the classic one that has the red stripe. Join the family. Folks, let us end this with our tradition, the creed of the assassin. Repeat after me with full conviction, knowing this is true of you.
Trinda just came in and said, peace to the Saints tuition.
Peace of the saints. Repeat after me with full conviction, knowing this is true of you. The creed of the assassin. I am going to be who I truly am because I am remarkable, and I'm going to strive every moment to show the greatest part of who I am. Until next time, peace to the saints.